Welcome to Fringe Pop 321, the show that believes the world is stranger than we think, but thinking should not be strange. We have with us two guests that I've known for a number of years. You go by different names, so I'm going to let you do a little bit of self-introduction, but for our viewers who have read my fiction, okay, we have Clarice and Ward. Clarice and Ward. Now, Amy, okay, that's the easy one. So Amy or Clarice, and Joe Ward, also you go by Free. So how would you like me to refer to you for the rest of the interview? What do you like?
I don't know. Clarice and Ward is kind of fun.
Clarice and Ward?
Sure.
I can remember that. Well, you guys live in Roswell, New Mexico, but of course there were times where you didn't live in Roswell, New Mexico. And you have a tattoo shop, you're both artists, and
Correct.
You participate and have participated in organizing UFO conferences. You're Christians as well, so I'm throwing all these things into the blender because there are going to be listeners that just are sort of at this point, how do those things all go together? So what I'd like to do in this first episode is just, what's your story? I mean, who are Clarice and Ward? How did you come to faith? What did you come out of? I mean, just tell us a little bit of your own journey.
I'll let you go first, Clarice.
Yeah, my family, I was raised Christian, but in a Bible-believing home, so just the answer was always check out the Word and see where that leads you, and God will lead you. I went to a couple different denominational schools. I went to a Lutheran school and a Catholic school for 1 year. So my parents were raised in Catholicism, and they kind of got out of that round when I was raised in...
Where were you at geographically?
In Wisconsin.
Wisconsin,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with Wisconsin.
Yeah. So I was raised around in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And, my parents were from Milwaukee.
All right, and you got out of high school. What did you do after that?
Yeah, so I went to school for art.
Yeah.
I went to Portland, Oregon for a little while, and then I came back to Wisconsin. That's where Free and I met. And I did a little bit of outreach ministry when I was in high school. So I did a couple missions trips locally, and I went to Jamaica once just to do service. I was always interested in just service oriented. If we could work ministry, and I had aspirations to do that when I was in high school. I had a bunch of mission, youth with a mission, and different programs that I was interested in. I really thought that that's what I was going to do, is just live in Africa or South America and like run away. That's really what I always thought, that I was going to go somewhere like uncomfortable and and just be there to be behind the scenes.
The mission impulse, yeah.
And God led me into just doing art, and I thought that would be a cool way to maybe get the questions, or have people think about things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
But work God into their work. God was always love to me. I found Him every time that people failed me, maybe, and I thankfully was raised in a loving home. But I definitely sought Him out, and the Psalms kind of raised me, and I remember that being a part of my life that I still resort to, but I've clung to, and that's something that He's always been my core. So I guess in that way, I did come to faith, I bet, when I was young.
Sure.
But throughout the years, I know I rededicated my life many times, but God was always part of my life in that way.
I did not know that you met in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So how are you originally from Wisconsin?
No, I wound up there through quite a long trail. Yeah. But Amy was working, doing her tattoo apprenticeship in a shop, and through the piercer that was working there, the head piercer, I was trading him a glass apprenticeship for a piercing apprenticeship. And that's how we both met. We just kind of met in that shop and started working, both doing apprenticeships. After a while, we wound up taking over and buying the shop and making that ours. And kind of taking up that mantle.
So where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Okay.
So Clinton country.
Yeah.
So
a little bit of your story, before and after the Wisconsin.
Well, my dad was in and out of church. My mom was definitely a Bible believer from the get-go. never heard their testimony,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of I think an oddity. But I would say I didn't really have the typical salvation beam of light coming down on me salvation experience.
Sure.
A cousin I saw got saved and baptized, and I think I was drawn to that attention that she was getting that I
Right.
probably didn't have in my own household, and went for that. And though I don't think I was saved at that time, I did express to God that I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
know him, and I think he really put a protective hedge around me the rest of my life, because anything could have gone wrong at that point.
Yeah.
But he saved me to the point that I could have that relationship with him like I do now.
Mm-hmm.
But couldn't name a time or a day
Yeah.
because I had that initial experience. But as I went through life, I found myself drawn closer and closer to him until, he's right here with me all times. And
So you left Arkansas and you went, did you go to Wisconsin? Or
no, out of high school, I kind of had a couple of jobs here and there, and then went into the Navy. 1992, was on a nuclear fast attack submarine with hull number 666 out of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii for a few years. And that was the end of the line for the Navy. That was enough for me.
Right.
And then I got out and started blowing glass after about a year.
Mm-hmm.
I worked another job, and really after the Navy, I was just tired of having anybody else tell me
Sure.
how to live or
Yeah.
do a job. So I started blowing glass on my own. I'm self-taught. I've been working since then, so about 23 years. So primarily an artist like Amy. So that's, I think, one of our first common grounds is just art in general.
So you met in Wisconsin. Then where did things go? Then did you move? Did you stay in Wisconsin for a while? I mean, how did you get to Roswell?
We wound up owning the shop together.
Okay.
Amy purchased it, and I became the head piercer. So she was head tattoo artist, shop owner, and then I was kind of the co-owner. And then we went for, I'd say, about a year. All of our staff kind of flaked on us, and then we decided that we got the call to come to Roswell and help. So,
All right. And so I met you right before you moved.
right before that,
Yeah. At the Godman and ET conference,
Right.
yeah, which was Parkside, University of Wisconsin Parkside, 2003.
correct,
Is that correct?
about this time of year.
Yeah, October, November 2003. A lot of people in this audience will not be familiar with that event, because it's not only been a while, but I guess you can watch it on Amazon, right?
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, somebody, it wasn't me, has it on Amazon Prime, yeah, but that was pretty well attended. I met you guys there, and then you moved to Roswell. And so what do you do now in Roswell? You've been there ever since. You're still there.
We just moved the shop and continued what we were doing, but now involved with the UFO field, but from a Christian point of view. So there didn't have a lot of companionship down then, but as we started working with you at the Godman and ET conference, we could see this was definitely the right move. We have the servant's heart. We're not looking for leadership, but we could see you as a leader in this field needed a crew around you to kind of help that happen. So that's where we formed up.
I remember, the Ancient of Days conferences. I can't remember how many that I actually participated in, but you guys were part of that. There in Roswell. So, I mean, that feels like a long time ago. It's not really that long ago, but it feels like a long time ago. So you were involved in the Christian side. I mean, because at one time Roswell had I guess you could say a fairly significant, Christian presence related to the UFO thing. I mean, that there was activity. That's probably a better way to put it. There was some sort of intentional activity there. Because they have the conference every year, the festival, but eventually you guys even got involved in that. So the city function. So how did that go? I mean, what is it like? Okay, just for the sake of the viewers, what is it like to plan the Roswell UFO Festival? Because I remember when
mayhem.
it was utter mayhem. Okay, because I remember. I mean, this is logistically, I would think, kind of a nightmare.
Right. Well, Roswell is small, but it's still kind of spread out. So the city really wanted to keep things central, focused around the UFO museum, And I think that trend is still continuing today. It's
Yeah.
kind of waxed and waned as far as city involvement, but we were on the UFO Festival City Committee for several years, planning conferences and the whole festival and a parade. I remember you rode in the parade.
Yeah,
in a
Strina and
nice
I were
white
in the
T-bird.
parade. That's right. I'm trying to remember. There's the guy in town who, lets the parade use his collection of classic
Right,
cars.
right.
I can't remember what we were in.
There's a whole club car, but that was an old T-bird.
Okay, because all I
T-bird.
remember is it was a car her dad would have really liked. My wife's dad would really.
Yeah.
I think it was actually something that he had, as a teenager.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember doing the parade, and you just, I can't see anybody, but we're just supposed to wave.
It was.
I remember you asking, "Is this going to put a target on the back of my head?"
Yeah. Well, because actually I was in twice, because once I rode with Nick Redfern. Yeah.
It's probably 8 and 9. 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And those were the last 2 years we worked with the city.
Okay.
Right. It went. What's just to back up just a hair,
Yeah.
which is interesting. I think God's timing is always interesting, and we can't really predict anything. But what was funny is we really felt for about a year that we were going to move, and that He was calling us away from Wisconsin, and then we responded to someone asking us for help with some conferences, and after we responded to that, within a month, we had a couple people within the area that knew what we were up to and actually gave us just a confirmation on whatever that is. You do what God's telling you to do, as we were feeling the same. And so we decided literally we're going to move either way, if we sold the shop or didn't sell the shop. And God brought a Christian into our life that actually wanted to take over the shop. We often would have great conversations and had a really huge Christian clientele, although we love everybody, but it ended up that they gravitated towards us, and we didn't really want to leave that. And God did allow for us to lay that and let somebody else take up that same facility and shop, and he was an on fire guy. And so what's funny is that same month, before we could leave Wisconsin, we found out what you were doing, literally an hour and a half away from where we were at.
Oh, yeah,
and hey, we have a book table that could you sit behind the book table? And it was an interesting thing. It was another confirmation that before we could even get out, if we would have left, we wouldn't have been able to come back and do that.
Right.
And that conference to us, in retrospect, is fairly significant. In fact, probably one of the best conferences.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, because of the people
set
that
a high
we
bar,
had.
and I don't know if it's been met since then.
I mean,
there's been a lot of good conferences. But
Yeah,
that
Hugh
really
Ross
set
was
the
there,
bar.
Paul Nelson, Richard Hoagland, Dave Flynn.
Yeah.
Okay, the late
Yes,
Dave Flynn was there. That was a pretty significant event. I mean, you guys, of course, know all the players in the field, and you've done, probably dozens and dozens of these events. And I mean, so I don't have the wealth of that experience, but I know what goes on at these things, and I would agree that was a little bit of that was a little bit above as far as the content offered at that event.
But we're eager to see you try.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
We're definitely on board with all that.
Now, okay, I have been in your shop, and why don't you describe for viewers kind of what your experience is now? Because I mean, all of us from the very beginning see the UFO thing as really about asking the God question and related questions. Who am I? Where's God? What is God? How did we get here? What's my destiny? All the big picture questions. And I've as I've said many times, on different shows, I have found you'll often have a better discussion about spiritual things at a UFO conference than you will in church, because those people are just primed.
Right.
People at UFO conferences are just primed to have these discussions. So just share with us a little bit about what are the conversations like? Just even now, like in your shop,
I'll
because
let
you
you go,
have
Amy,
Christian books there and some other things. Go ahead.
Literally, it comes up almost 100% of clientele. It's very rare that it doesn't, but Amy's usually the one sitting in the chair hammering it out, so I'll let her.
Yeah, and in the same stead, if I'm with one client in the chair, he's out fielding everybody who walks in. So I think God uses us as a team in that way, and we've we've learned that when someone has ears to hear, you know, they'll ask. And so to be there and to be available, and not even to steer anything, but to see what God's really doing in their life. But when that does happen, to be able to kind of be there with some good questions for them. Like, what does that really mean to you? And when you ask me, what do I believe in aliens and UFOs, because I live in Roswell, what do you mean with this word believe? And why do you, it's interesting that you say that, because in 2 seconds flat, someone can bring up believing in something when usually that's skirted when they think God's at the end of that answer. I think that
they're willing to believe in all sorts of things when you get when God gets introduced to.
So what I usually answer is that if 90% of the world, and maybe that figures off, believes in something other than, you know, there's something outside of, you know, just our physical beings, then, and they believe possibly in a God or God outside of this world. Well, you got to start with definitions. So if the definition of an alien is something that's not human, well, pretty much 90% of the world already believes that. So it's not really a huge leap. It's not a modern, you know, jump just because this face looks like a, you know, from the communion book, or from, you know, like a gray alien. It doesn't change that we've had things that
the category is still there.
Yeah, and even from a Christian perspective, you know, entertaining angels unawares. They could look like a human 1 minute, or you could think there's some amazing being of light, you know, that whole shape-shifting idea of that they could be something that we don't really recognize is relevant, I think, when they're asking that question. Posing that back to them, usually I get kind of a moment for a second. They just really hadn't even thought that there could be a connection between angels and God, and aliens being just outside of this world. So
you guys really, on a day-to-day, I mean, because I get asked, you know, by academics or other Christians, you know, why does a biblical scholar do this stuff? You know, in the broadest sense, you're trying to have important conversations with people, and you're trying to help them to think about whatever that topic is. I mean, this is what we do here, you know, at Fringe Pop. You know, you try to get them to think about the topic in a different way, maybe a better way, better sourcing. Just ask some good, you know, probing, critical questions. Don't just, this popped into my head, I like the idea, and so I believe in it now. But you guys have that experience every day, it sounds like. At any given point, any given day, somebody's going to come in, and essentially that's the goal. That's what you do. Do you find that most people more than one or two questions deep? In other words, are they willing to have the conversation, or is it just a point of curiosity?
I think they're willing to have the conversation, but about 2 questions into it, they're out of their comfort zone. So there's a little bit of apprehension, because ironically they're asking a question that they think they already have the answer to.
Right.
So in a way, they're trying to trick me into an answer.
And or they want that affirmation.
We open the discussion and we ask them, and it turns out they don't really have that belief system. They're just watching Ancient Aliens on TV.
Yeah. Well, you guys know, again, basically all the major players in the UFO field. So we're going to do another episode, follow-up episode, and I want to sort of just, you know, pick your brains a little bit about that, you know, because I'm sure our viewers want to know, hey, you know, what are these people like? Why do they do this? You know, where are they at? Is there a spectrum of opinion, I mean, even outside the Christian, you know, arena of this? So when we come back, I'm going to ask you some of those questions, but for now, just thanks for being here.
It's an honor.
Always fun to be with you, Mike.
Thank you. And thanks for watching Fringe Pop 321. If you want to visit our website, go to fringepop321.com. We have lots of information on the YouTube episodes that we do here with sourcing and further discussion. If you want to support what we're doing, go to fp321.com/S, as in the letter S, and come back and watch more episodes, because what you know may not be so.